So your pattern did not come with a pattern piece for some kind of band. Maybe that's a waistband or a neckband, a tank top band, something of that sort. Drives me nuts, drives everybody a little bit nuts, I bet, but it happens all the time. And if you're like me, you hate busting out that acrylic ruler and measuring everything perfectly and cutting it out, and you wish you had some kind of easy pattern piece. Of course, you could always take your acrylic ruler, measure out a pattern piece on a piece of paper, cut it out, boom, there you go. But I'm going to show you my secret, not so secret hack for how I just make my own neckbands or tank top bands or armbands or waistbands or whatever it is that I need, how I make them really quickly, really accurately, and then I don't have to worry about that situation anymore. So here, I'm just pulling up a pattern that I know does not have the bands included in the pattern when I go to print it. I just have the measurements. So here I'm looking at the size I want. I want the 19-inch crossover neck. So it needs to be 19 inches long by 1.5 inches tall. What I'm going to do is open up whatever word processor that I have. So I have Microsoft Word. That one, in my opinion, is probably the most accurate one to trust. But if you're running on an Apple operating system, it's possible you might be using whatever comes standard on that. I haven't had an Apple computer since like 1999, so I have no idea what's on those anymore. But I'm going to pull up Word. I'm going to start a blank document, and it's literally this simple. You go to Insert, you go to Shapes, you select your square, draw a square. Up in the right-hand corner, you're going to have size information. You can push this little arrow and pop out a layout box. So I need my band to be 1.5 inches by 19. Obviously, if you're using US standard letter size paper, we know that our paper is not 19 inches long. And this is where you'll bust out your handy calculator if you're anything like me and you can't do arithmetic. 19 divided by 2 is, of course, 9.5. So I know that I want mine to be 9.5 inches long. I want my width to be 1.5 inches wide. Now, I don't want to waste all this color or anything of that sort because I'm cheap. So I'm going to click on it, go up to Shape Fill, just make it no fill. Sometimes I like to thicken the outline and give it a little bit more weight. Maybe I'll put like a 2-point weight on that. And when I cut this out with my scissors, I'm going to cut outside of that line. So the measurement is from the outside of the line here to the outside of the line over here. So when you're increasing the thickness is increasing on the inside of the line. So when you go to cut this out, just make sure you're doing it from the outside of this line. So what I do now, because I don't want to print just a random rectangle and have it sitting around, I like to add some information onto this so I know what it's for. So what I'm going to do is go back to Insert, and you don't have to do this. This is totally optional. This is what I prefer to do. I'm going to add a text box and just your standard text box. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type in my pattern information. So I know it's the Hazel Bee Baby crossover neck for size 3 month. So that's all the information that I want. I like to get a little fancy sometimes and maybe increase the font size a little bit. Maybe I'm going to make it bold. Who knows what I'm going to do? So many options. Then you just drag it over wherever you want it on that band. Grab it, rotate it however you want it. I'm really picky and they have to be perfect. Move it wherever you feel like. It doesn't matter. I don't like, once again, having the lines around it. So I'm going to go back into my editor, shape outline. No outline. I don't want that. So now I know that this is my crossover neckband size 3 month for that specific pattern. Now you will remember that I created this rectangle only half the length that I actually needed. So I needed 19 inches. I put it in here as 9.5. What I do once again is I insert another text box just like the first one we did, and I put fold. I go back, I do all my fancy stuff, you know, I make it a little bit bigger, I make it bold, I make it center, and I drag that down to the bottom of my pattern piece. I get rid of my shape outline because I don't like it and I don't need one. I make it small enough that it's going to fit into my neckband, and I drag that word fold down as far as I can go. Now I have standard margins on this piece right now, so it's not letting me drag them down any further. But if I wanted to change the layout, I would just have to click off of my box somewhere, go to layout, margins. I can make them narrow. That's going to move things around a little bit for you. And then I can move this word fold down closer to that actual point that I'm going to fold it on my fabric. So that's what it looks like. Make sure you're checking out your margins and making sure that your printer is going to be able to print that. If you put it too close to the edge of the paper, it's not going to work. Sometimes you might have to print two, measure them, tape them together. Kind of defeats the purpose a little bit if you ask me, but at least you have perfectly square lines. So all you do at this point, print that bad boy off. And for me, at least, in terms of Microsoft Office, I've never had to do custom scaling 100% or actual size or anything like that that you would typically do in Adobe. With Microsoft, I just print it with the standard properties that it already has ready to go. Once I print it out, I end up measuring it, and everything always, time and time again, comes out perfect. So here is my nifty little piece that I cut out. That's what it looks like. Everything fell within my margins. So now, like I said earlier, what I'm gonna do is cut it out on the outside of this bold line. Don't cut the line off because then it's gonna be too small. And when we're sewing small things like something size 3 month, when you're taking off even a 1/16 of an inch, it's gonna make a considerable difference overall. So cut it out on the outside of this line, and then we'll go ahead and measure it and make sure that looks perfect. So here we are, there it is all cut out. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and measure it. You can do that if you have a standard tape measure, or you have a fabric tape measure, or you have an acrylic ruler, or you have a cutting mat. It doesn't matter what you have, you can measure it using whatever medium you prefer to. So all I'm gonna do is make sure that it comes out at 9.5 inches, lining everything up. And it's literally perfect. There's my half. It's falling right on that. And I want to make sure it's 1.5 inches wide. So I'm going to line this top line up. And over on the side, it's hitting the 1/2 inch mark perfectly. It's right there. So overall, this is exactly what I need it to be. I've got my reminder here that I need to cut this on the fold right there. It's 1.5 inches by 9.5 inches. So when I cut this on the fold, I'm going to have 19 inches by 1.5 inches. And that, my friends, is how you beat the system. Have fun.